Hey guys, this is Nathan with the Daily Analysis, and today we're going through the analysis a little bit early because I'm leaving from work here pretty soon, and I just wanted to make sure that I got the analysis out before I left. So I apologize that we're a little early. It's only about 12:40 p.m. Eastern Time here, but I figured some analysis is better than no analysis. So we're going to run through these daily charts quickly here and go over, these potential setups, despite the fact that they may change by the end of the day. Alright, so before we do that, let's check out our news real quick, and then we'll get back into the charts. Alright, and by the way, just let me draw your attention to today. We had new home sales come out for the US dollar, and they were pretty poor, 368,000 compared to a 387,000 expectation. So a pretty rough announcement for the US dollar, which obviously, when we look at the charts, you can see the US dollar weakness showing, and so that is what happened today. Now, if we take a look at tomorrow, let me scroll down here. We have unemployment claims, of course, because it's Thursday. That happens at 8:30 a.m. U.S. time, or Eastern time. Wow, U.S. time. 8:30 Eastern time, as it always does. So pay attention to that. And then later on, we have pending home sales, which is different than the announcement we had today. Okay, so keep in mind that 8:30 and 10 a.m. are both red tag U.S. dollar events, and we'll certainly want to pay attention to those. As we're trading the New York session tomorrow. Alright, now let's take a quick look at our terms, then we can jump into the charts. And basically the terms just say that we're not licensed or qualified to provide investment advice, and anything that we say or do or show you is purely for your educational purpose and is not to be intended as our suggestion for you to risk your own money. Alright. Alright guys, so for the pound, again, we mentioned that we're right off this very strong trend line pushing downward. And today started off with a lot of momentum toward the downside, got about halfway through this triangle, but then that very poor US dollar news came out, and the US dollar began shooting back up, which is why we have this tail bar now actually pushing right back up towards the trend line. So one of the major things that I would expect here is that if this continues to push, we'll just get a retest of this level and then a re-push back down to the bottom of the trend line. I think that is a pretty high probability there, assuming that it comes back and touches that trend line. And that's the main expectation for the pound dollar. If you were short on this already, you might have got out with some profit. You might still be hanging on. Either way, I think it's still a very potentially good trade. But just make sure that if this thing continues to tighten up all the way down here, that you're not still holding on to a short with expectations of it falling down to a major level here, because there's just as good of a chance as it breaking out to the top as there is of it breaking out to the bottom, and you don't want to gamble. You don't want to just take a coin flip trade. You want to take a high probability trade. So again, I think that the pound dollar is still a short potential, but don't hold on to it forever and get yourself into a bad situation if it's not going to fall back to the bottom of that wedge. Okay, let's check the euro dollar as well. Okay, and very similarly to the pound dollar, the euro dollar has this level here that we've drawn. I have a pretty obvious level based on the topping action here. Yesterday we made our bounce off of that, looking to push down in maybe towards this 128.30 area that you see here in red. But again, that U.S. dollar poor news just pushed it right back up, and now we're heading back up to test this zone again. So very similar to the pound. Looks like we're going to get a retest of our major zone, which is here. And then again, we'll be looking for shorts back to the bottom of this area, which is again 128.30 in that general zone. Okay, so that's the euro dollar. Look for a retest as this pushes price back up, and we'll see what happens with news and everything else tomorrow. But right now, it's looking like price definitely wants to get it back corrected into this area. Okay. Now the AUD today was a bit stronger than the euro and the pound, as you see, because it never really went down nearly as far, and you can see that's actually quite a bullish bar overall at this point in time. So it's along with this upward trend area, coming again to test this downward, this long-term downward line that we see here, and it's been testing relatively often for quite some time. Excuse me. So now we're getting this bullish move, and it's getting very close to testing this level. And the question is, are we going to see a break through the top of this level here? Is the AUD going to continue to gain strength, or are we going to see a drop to the bottom? And so, both of those are potential. This area, this upward move that you can see here, has been relatively consistent, but we're getting to a point where one of these levels, however you draw it, has to be broken here. and it's a matter of time before it does. So keep an eye on the odds tightening up. One of these levels is going to have to break, and you want to be on the right side of it when it does break. And so certainly keep your eye on the odd as it continues to move in that direction. Okay, Euro Pound here is what I'm showing you now. Not a lot going on, still hanging right around this 80-80 area. You can see that for about 4 days here we haven't made much progress in either direction. Again, with the Euro Pound, we've made this move up, and it's kind of in a consolidating period, and we want to know if it's going to come back up and try to test this trend line now, or if it's going to take a rounding motion and actually head back down to lower lows. Both are very possible because it's the euro versus the pound, so it's not where these currencies are shifting in power dramatically. It's the euro versus the pound, which are very similar. So the potential for it to go either way is very, very high probability that it can go in either direction. In other words, wait and see what happens. Don't just take a guess on the euro pound, because there's really no fundamentally sound way that I know of to judge which way this euro pound is going to break. And right here, guys, we have the US dollar Canadian on the daily chart, which is one I showed you yesterday. A good bounce yesterday off the trend line, but obviously with some bad US dollar news, starting to move back down towards this trend line. And again, for I don't know, the third or fourth pair in a row, I'm going to say it. Looks like we're going to get a retest here, and then we'll see if it continues after the retest up, or if this is strong enough to break. Right now, it doesn't look like it has enough momentum to break through that trend line, in my personal opinion. But of course, it's just that's just a guessing game when it comes to when this momentum is going to pick up and be able to break certain areas. As far as technically sound trading, I think this trend line is pretty consistent, pretty strong, and unless there's a lot of momentum behind this bearish move, it's not going to break right through it. So I'm still expecting this to continue upward eventually, even if it does struggle on that trend line for a little bit of time before it goes up. Alright guys, and the last pair I want to cover is this pound New Zealand that we always talk about. And that's because it's still tightening up in this triangle. Now, it depends on how you draw this line. Like, I could probably make this line fit a little better and draw it like that, and then you'd have a better triangle to base it on. But still, it's very important to note that we're still struggling in this area, still fighting back and forth between this wedge. So make sure you're waiting for this breakout. This is a descending triangle, which means the triangle is moving down, which should mean that the likely breakout is actually downward. But that is not extremely high percentage, not something you can count on. So I would really be anticipating either way. Either breakout would be a valuable trade option for me. So just keep an eye on this triangle as it continues to tighten in this range. Remember, the pound New Zealand is not a pair that likes to remain tight and crunched up for very long. So a breakout could be a massive move. Alright guys, well that's it for the analysis. I know it was short and it was a little earlier than usual, but I hope it's beneficial to you. And please make sure you leave a comment, and I will try to respond to all the comments in my video tomorrow. For instance, if you if there's a pair that we didn't cover today, if you want to cover it tomorrow, just make sure you leave that comment, and we will do that. Alright guys, talk to you tomorrow.